Hey, hi everyone. I'm getting ready to go live on LinkedIn. There it says I'm live. Oh, good. Let me see if I can. Well, I don't want to watch this on my own screen, so let me share. Hey, hi everyone. It's Lou Adler. We are now live on LinkedIn. I want to go here. I want to share my screen. As you know, when I go LinkedIn live, we actually do stuff. I don't know if it's important stuff, but we do stuff. We focus on what we really want to do. So today I want to kind of describe what I believe is necessary for hiring managers, recruiters, talent leaders, and job seekers on how to navigate the challenging hiring issues we have today. The one thing that I would suggest you do is, if you're a job seeker, is don't apply for a job. It's a waste of time. And if you're a recruiter, don't post any more jobs. It's a waste of time. You're going to get inundated with people. Some of them are going to be very good, but the best ones won't apply because they're going to do what I'm about to tell them. And you'll spend most of your time then trying to use technology to weed out the people who shouldn't have applied to begin with. So I'm going to make this contention, and then I'm going to offer everybody an option to challenge everything I say, because those are more fun and it's more interesting anyway. A couple of things I want to do first, though, is I have to have somebody tell me where the LinkedIn. Sometimes I get notified, sometimes I don't get notified in a message. And at this point, I have not been notified that we're live. I saw it on my full site, but I didn't see it here. So if you could do this for me. In the LinkedIn message, send me a message, but include the URL for this meeting. Well, actually, I might be able to see some of the messages here. I forgot. I've got so many different systems going on here. 2 screens, 68 sites opened or windows open, but I forgot that I have I'm now connected on my Restream chat. So let's see if we're there, because I want to see what's going on here. So if you could send me a message, I start seeing messages coming in here. So I must be live. Good. You are connected. You are connected. 5 channels. But I do need somebody. Oh, I do. I'm seeing you guys. If you could. So I've got, okay, I know Tricia, everybody else, you're live. Could somebody just send me the URL of this meeting within LinkedIn? Just put it into message and see it. I can see the messages here. Thank you very much, Mark. You're a good guy. I appreciate it. So now I can go to messages here, see if I see it. Mark, you're probably there. Nope, I don't see it there. Let's see if it's a different Mark Arlo. I want to see it on my LinkedIn. It's probably a little bit late. Neither here. I'll kind of go with this, and then you can, and I appreciate that. If you want, you could also put in some of your hiring challenges, whether you're a job seeker, getting interviewed, certainly that's a challenge, and I can appreciate that. If you're a hiring manager, you can do that. If you're a recruiter, or once were a recruiter, you can do that too. I'll start seeing, I don't know why I'm not seeing these in here yet. I definitely see them on here. I'm starting to see it, so I appreciate that. They're coming in. I have this new messaging app, so I am seeing them, so I can see you here. We are here in DC. Hi from Belgium. Hi from the UK. Hi from Turkey. Thank you, Suzanne. Why I'm not seeing them on my LinkedIn app, but doesn't matter. I got it. Okay, let me kind of make the first statement. I have created a free course, Prepping the Interview for Job Seekers. You'll get it here at hiring.tips. Well, just cut and paste that, or take a picture of that specific link. I don't need to read the link. And I also want to state this is somehow I got a connection that's a bit screwed up on LinkedIn. So they don't tell you if the course is live or not. As far as I'm concerned, I am now live. But if you saw that in 2 hours, I'd still say it and you'd believe it. It is now 2100 hours GMT on May 4th, 2020. I'll say it again. Hopefully I'll say it a few other times so that if you see it an hour past this or tomorrow or the next day, you'll know that that's when I was live. And also the job seeker class, you've got it. You got to go to that site. It says where you can get a coupon to get it for free. We have, because of the way the e-commerce site is, I have to charge you $5 if you don't have the coupon, but don't worry, get a coupon and you'll be better off. Here's what I want to talk about though today. And you guys can challenge me, and you know that I've been around a long time. I've been around a real long time. I don't care if you're from Nigeria, from Dubai, from Italy. although Italy's the only, Hawaii and Italy are the only places I'll actually move to. I live in Southern California, so it's okay. But one of my books that I wrote, in fact, it was the first book I wrote. It was after I was a recruiter for 20 years. I was tracking what was going on. Job boards were really coming into their play. It was called Monster and Career Builder, which you probably don't hear them anymore. Applicant tracking systems were coming into play. And it was probably 5 or 6 or 7. Can't remember the big one. It had a different name. I can't remember the names. And then companies were actually building in-house recruiting teams to solve all the problems with hiring. And we were promised that we're going to win the war for hiring. This was 1996, 97, 98. At the time, I didn't believe it. It just didn't make sense to me because they were fundamentally doing the wrong things. I mean, you can't post a boring job and expect a great person to say, oh, I can't wait to get that boring job. You can't expect a great person to endure the abuse of a hiring process that's demeaning. You can't expect to hire a great person if you have recruiters who box check skills, negotiate the compensation before the candidate knows the job, and hiring managers make judgments about first impressions and where that person went to school rather than the person's ability. You can't hire more diverse talent when you say the person has to go to this school and has to have this 10 years of experience. You can't hire non-traditional talent or people using a process that's discriminating at its core. So as far as I'm concerned, I knew that wasn't going to work. 22 years later, exactly the same problems we had. And most companies are now trying to solve the problem of, hey, we got all these unqualified people who are applying, and how do we get rid of them to get the best of the people who apply? And I'm going to contend the best people didn't apply, and all the diverse candidates, all the high potential candidates, all the non-traditional candidates, all the older candidates are perfectly qualified to do the work. None of them apply because the system doesn't allow them to do that. So that's my pitch. You can argue the pitch. And I know I'm a few minutes, so here's the problem, the technical problem. I am saying this, and I'm seeing your questions come in 30 seconds after I say this, so there's a bit of a time lag. I think there's somebody there making sure that I don't say anything profane. But when I say that job boards are useless and job descriptions are useless, and I'll also say resumes are useless, but we'll get to that in a minute. Both of those are tools that are outdated and inefficient and inappropriate in today's world of hiring. My world of hiring says you have to hire for the anniversary date, not the start date. The start date, you focus on compensation, title, location, and box check skills. Anniversary date, you focus on, hey, is this person competent and motivated to do this work? And does this person see this job as a career move? And a year after that person is hired, does that person say, what a great career decision I made? And the hiring manager says, I'm glad I hired that person. That's win-win hiring. You cannot do that and achieve those outcomes using the tools that companies use today. So I have got a mission that hopefully it's not going to take 22 years, but I think it could take a year or so. And we actually have clients now who recognize that everything that they're doing with respect to posting more boring job postings, screening people on criteria that doesn't screen, using artificial intelligence, that's stupid intelligence. It's not smart artificial intelligence. Screening and using an inefficient process that moves faster is not a good thing. So let me just give you an example of any of you who are familiar with artificial intelligence. The number one criteria that would predict a candidate's ability to do the work is the rate of change of growth of that person in their current job or their pattern of jobs, rate of change of growth. There is not one single AI tool, because I've looked at a dozen, that has actually taken that into account. They look at box check skills. They try to figure, hey, we'll go through this machine learning to see what patterns we see that determine success, but the patterns they're using are the wrong candidates to use. And if they did, they'd realize, oh, this whole process doesn't make sense. So I'm going to stop there. I love you. All the other stuff is just busy work. Thank you, Tricia. It's 100% true. It's a waste of time. So let me kind of go into a few details, and then I'm going to stop and listen to some questions. So again, I want to make the statement that we have a job seeker class. Prepping for the interview, it's free. You have to go to lms.performancebasedhiring.com. If you click on that, you'll see there's a coupon you can get to get the course for free. You only have it for 10 days, but that's all you need. but this is something I put together, which shows what, and I've been doing this for a lot of years. I've been tracking people for a lot of years. And I found out here's the predictors that actually best predict on the job success. So I'm just going to kind of go through these and you'll get a sense of it. And then you can argue, and feel free to argue. I have no problem with that. And sometimes the argument is that I was misunderstood. And I do talk fast. And I sometimes in my own, and I don't want to say it's a defense because it's a flaw, is I skip over things that are important and I recognize that I did not adequately address a specific issue. And I take full responsibility for that. Sometimes I misunderstand a question I answered improperly. So I do have to slow down. But on the other hand, the core content I believe is irrefutable, meaning it's defensible and it works. Let me just say what I call terrible predictors of job success. First impressions are terrible predictors. Candidates get nervous in interviews. People often don't make a great first impression, and it has nothing to do with their ability to do the work. But we make judgments about people based on their first impressions, and there's no fact that would about a person's first impression that's important in predicting success. Even if you, the hiring manager, say, well, the first impressions are important for this job. Fine. Here's what I tell people who believe that to be true. Measure first impression at the end of the interview when the person's not nervous and when your seduction factor is neutralized and you're objective. At the end of the interview, after 30 to 40 minutes, make the judgment, hey, will this person's first impression, now that they're kind of a normal person, not nervous about the interview, will this help or hinder on the job performance? Totally okay to say that. And I think you'll discover that 90% of first impressions are overrated and you still don't want to be seduced by it. So here's my big rule for interviewing. Use the interview to restate that. Use the interview to collect the evidence to make a hiring decision. Don't use the interview to make the hiring decision. Collect the evidence in a 30 to 45 minute interview, an hour interview, and then take that evidence and use that to make a judgment. But don't filter the collection of evidence. If I really like someone, I ask them easier questions. And if I don't like someone, I ask hard questions. So at the end of the interview, I collected evidence to prove my initial first impression. So that's a critical point. Second component, thumbs. I know we've all been in situations where the biggest thumb wins. You're in a debriefing session, the boss doesn't like the person and everyone else is intimidated, so they don't argue with the boss. Thumbs are a bad criteria to use for who should get hired. Evidence is a good criteria to use who get hired. And we'll go through what evidence is in a minute, but I don't want to overwhelm it. I don't want this to be a complete lecture. Now, gut decisions. I hire with my gut. I know the person when I'll see them. Research shows they're at best 50-50. They're useless. That means it's useless. Now, my first book that I wrote was called Hire with Your Head, written in 1997. And the subtitle was A Rational Way to Make a Gut Decision. You'll never have all the information you need to assess a person properly, but you want to minimize that gut decision by getting as much evidence as you can with respect to that person's past performance doing work you need done. Some of the bad evidence is a laundry list of skills, years of experience, and generic competencies. None of these things matter unless you understand the context of the job. So when someone tells me they need 5 years of this background in this technology, I say, well, how is that used on the job? Oh, they have to use it to design a new system. Fine. How do they use communication skills? Oh, they have to present reports. Fine. They have to drive for results. What does that look like in this job? Oh, they've got to ensure that we reach that launch date on time. Fine. None of those generic skills mean anything unless you can put it in the context of the job. So I consider the terrible and weak predictors without knowledge of the job you're going to get, let me restate this. If you're a job seeker, you're going to be interviewed inaccurately. And if you're a hiring manager, recruiter interviewing a candidate, you will do a poor job if you use any of those 6 factors at the top of the list. So let me just leave it at that for a second. And I want to kind of define the hiring formula. So I don't have any, but everybody hang up. Did I lose you guys? I don't have another single message here. So I'm wondering if I lost you. Hey, tell me if I'm live. I have not had another message here for about 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So I have a feeling that I've lost you. That would be disappointing if I got cut out. Enjoyed today's sessions. I think I got cut out. Oh, you're here. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I didn't see another message for 6 minutes, and last week I got cut out. Thank you for got me nervous. Well, got me nervous because it's a technical issue, but I'm glad I'm here. Do we still have people here? We do. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. I want to kind of open it up a little bit and describe this as how people should be hired. And then I'm going to give advice to job seekers on how to ensure they're hired accurately, and recognize to job seekers that you will be hired inaccurately. If you conduct an interview, I guarantee 95% of the time that person who's interviewing you will misjudge your abilities. Almost guarantee it. I've been done this thousands and thousands of times. So it's not based on anecdotal evidence. It's real evidence. But over the years, I've created this hiring formula for success, which says ability to do the work in relationship to fit. And ability is technical skills, team skills, organizational skills, problem-solving skills, core skills. Critically, you have to be good at it. In relationship to fit, which is fit with the job. Do you want to do this work? And if you're not intrinsically motivated to do it, you're not competent. And that's not true. You're not qualified for this job. So if you think you've done something, you're perfectly competent to do the work, but you haven't done it for 10 or 15 years, you might be overqualified. You're just bored with it. You're not motivated to do it. So ability to do the work in relationship to fit, and that's fit with the job, fit with the company culture, and fit with the hiring manager's leadership style. So there's a lot of components of fit. That's the one that's the big variable. Ability is actually pretty easy to figure out. Fit with the job, culture, and manager is a little tougher, but that collectively drives motivation. I mean, even if you're perfectly motivated to do this work in real time, but your boss is a pain in the neck, you're not going to get too motivated. If you are competent to do the work, but you don't like to do the work, you're not going to get too motivated. If you're competent to do the work and like to do the work, but you're in a culture that's toxic, you're not going to be too excited about it. So all of those things affect motivation. And because motivation is so important, we square it. So it's ability and relationship to fit drives motivation. Motivation so important, we square it, that equals results. That's getting the job done, exceeding expectations. Ability to do the work in relation to fit drives motivation and ultimately performance. Now, this is a good formula to use if you're hiring someone. We have scorecards that allow people to do it, and formal debriefings that assess those factors. But I want to focus on job seekers to see what they need to do in order to be assessed accurately. Again, let me make this other statement, is that I am live now at 1811 hours GMT, 11:11 on May 4th, 2020 Pacific time. I just want, so if you think I'm live, the recordings might not say that, but hopefully that would be a clue that I am not live at this point in time when you're reading it. Sorry for that interruption, but these are people who are not seeing it live. Yeah, and I think we all know that. So let me kind of give some advice to job seekers, and I call them forced choice questions. If you feel that you are not being accurately assessed during the interview, if you feel that someone is overly biased, which is one of the worst predictors, is not listening to you, has made a judgment about your first impression, and if they don't like you, they start asking you hard questions to try to prove to themselves that you're not competent. You have to be comfortable enough to recognize, this person has already excluded me in a minute or two and asked me hard questions just so they can have an excuse to not hire me. You have to take matters into your own hands and convert the job into a performance objective. And you'll say something like this: I'm a little bit unsure of, I apologize for interrupting, but would you mind giving me a few examples of some of the performance challenges of this job? So at least I understand what you need done. And if possible, I'd like to give you some examples of work that I've done to see if some of them are comparable. So that's the idea. You have to proactively intervene if you feel you're being misjudged as a job candidate. And I will guarantee 80 to 90% of the time you will be misjudged. Some recruiter on the phone will dox check your skills, ask you about compensation, and I'll address the compensation issue in a moment. But I just want to recognize, you have to recognize that box checking your skills, your experience, how many years you have in the workforce, none of those are predictive of your ability. What's predictive of your ability is the ability to handle the job. And you'll never know that unless you know what the performance expectations of the job are. So just ask, hey, I'm a little bit unsure. What could you mind, before we get into all these details, and I'm happy to give them all to you, can you tell me a little bit about some of the performance expectations of the job? And then I can narrow my answers down to meet those specific needs. That's a critical step that you proactively have to take if you're a job seeker. Let me also state that if you're an interviewer on the other side of the desk, you should already know what those performance expectations are and say something like this when you interview a candidate. Hey, one of the biggest things we need to do in this job is design a system that does A, B, and C, working with people in the engineering and the marketing and accounting department. Can you tell me about something you've accomplished that's most related? That to me is my most significant accomplishment question. It takes 15 minutes of fact finding and peeling the onion to get the answer. But if you know that, you know if there's a fit. Here's what the person needs to do. Here's what the person has accomplished, and to see if there's a fit. You can instantly tell in 15 or 20 minutes if the person's in the game. So I think recruiters, hiring managers, and job seekers have to force that question if it's not natural. So here's the way I would suggest. Well, let me just kind of see, does that, anybody else give me some instant questions? You are live, good pointers, loving the conversation. Kind of one way, Kenneth, but meaning I'm talking. I'm getting actually tired. I wish you guys would ask some real good questions. I don't think I can go another more than 5 or 10 minutes. That was up to update fair advantage. Why is that interesting? Oh, there it is. How important is to find unfair advantage? I'm not really sure what that means, Chev. I'm not sure what that means about unfair advantage. Be a little bit clearer about that. Let me kind of describe how I think answers should be done and how to get ready for an interview. I call it the SAFW response. Basically, when a hiring manager says, hey, one of our performance objectives is, what have you done that's most similar? A good answer has to be about 1 minute to 2 minutes long. If it's more than 2 to 3 minutes, and there are a lot of you guys out there that talk a lot and think you're great at interviewing, no, you're boring, and you'll the hiring manager will be tuned out. On the other hand, if you think you're introverted and quiet, and you think a 1 sentence or 2 sentence answer that lasts 1 or 2 minutes is interesting, no, they'll think you just don't understand. So a good answer not only answers the question, but also allows you about 1 or 2 minutes so people understand your communication skills. Can you put a paragraph together? Can you put 2 paragraphs together? So the length of time is important. 1 to 2 minutes is important. You have to master this skill if you're a candidate. I use the term SAFW, say a few words. Make an opening statement, and I'll try to give you an example of one so you get a feel for it. Amplify the statement and say a few words as an opening statement. It takes about 10 to 15 seconds, 1 or 2 sentences. Amplify the statement, another 10 or 15 seconds, 1 or 2 sentences. Then you give a few examples, If you want to use the STAR pattern to give an example, that's fine. Here's the situation, here's the task I had, here was the action I took, and here's the result I was achieved. That's a great way to form your few examples and wrap it up with a conclusion. So let me do it off the top of my head. What does it make a good fit for? I'll go to that, Ken. That's a good question. I'm happy to answer that. But let me kind of give you an example of this, and I'll answer some of your questions you have here. So let's assume that someone said, what is the biggest thing you've done regarding setting up a new project? And I might say, I want to be I want to make sure, so let me I'll just kind of go through the SAFW. I want to be sure that the project you're talking about is working with marketing and the user interface group to put together a new application. Is that the kind of a project that person shakes head? Well, on the last 2 jobs I've had, those are exactly what I've done. We put a project together. One was a B2B project. The other one was a direct-to-consumer product and application. And I was responsible for putting the product requirements document together. Let me give you a specific example of a project we had about 6 months ago, which I think is most relevant to what you need. Now, here's the situation. Let me define the task. Here's the action I took, and here's the result we achieved. Based on that, I truly believe that the work that I've done recently seems to be comparable to what you need done on this job. Is that the kind of thing you're looking for? That's a good response. It would take about a minute to 2 to do it. If you talk too much, the interviewer will get disengaged and tune you out. If you don't talk enough, the interviewer has to work too hard. Most people don't know how to interview who are jobs, hiring managers and recruiters. They don't really know how to interview. It's hard work. So the candidate, if they make it easy and give good answers and kind of get into a good and big give and take dialogue, you're well on your way to becoming a finalist for that job. Now, obviously, the examples have to be relevant to the work that needs to be done, but your answer is as important as the quality of your answer is important as the information in the answer. So let me kind of wrap it up there. As you notice, I put a hook on the end of that. After I wrapped it up, I said, is that consistent with what you're looking for? Now the hiring manager has to answer that question. And you've kind of gone into a give and take dialogue. That will be a critical skill. If you just master this slide and the one I did before that, you're in a game. You will be in the top 25% of all candidates for that job. So now let me kind of answer some of your questions. Okay, so Betty, great question. I don't understand why recruiters and hiring managers don't call back to at least say thank you. The reason, Betty, is, and it's every Betty in the world who applied to a job he or she wasn't qualified for. So I've talked to about 10 different ATSs, and about 300 million applicants applied in the last 5 years. Only 300 million, only 3 million people got jobs, which means that 297 million people didn't even get, I'll say there's probably approximately 95% of those people never should have applied to begin with. There's just no time in the world to call everybody back. So here's what I would say. If you really feel you're a good candidate, do not apply to a job directly. It is into a black hole, and you deserve what you get. You will not get feedback. Nobody can answer. You'll get some artificial email that says, sorry, Betty, you're not the right person. And I'm going to contend candidates have an obligation to not muck up the system. If you think you're perfectly qualified for a job, go to LinkedIn, look for the hiring manager or the VP of that specific job, and don't send a resume. Send a write-up. Hey, they're looking for this kind of person to do this work. Send a resume to the director of that department or the VP of that department and say, I understand you're looking for a person to handle this kind of a project. Well, in my recent past, here's what I've handled. I'd love to have a chance to chat with you to see if there's a reasonable fit. That is the back door. That is a much better way to get the top of the list if you feel you're perfectly qualified for the job. You just got to bypass the system. So sorry, Betty, but I believe that candidates applying for jobs and companies allowing them to apply for jobs is a waste of time on both sides, and everybody gets the problems that they deserve. It's a stupid system, and part of it is it's impersonal, it's mechanical, and it's nothing to do with you, Betty. It has to do with the system. It's a crummy way of hiring. And I truly believe that HR technology is a waste of money, a waste of time, and it's the cause of the problems we have today. It is not the solution. High touch is the solution. Defining the jobs as serious performance objectives, looking for semifinalists, discussing people's accomplishments and seeing if those accomplishments represent a career move. And if they do, that person will be successful and we will achieve a win-win hiring outcome, which is at the end of the year, great job. I'm glad I took it. Great candidate. I'm glad I made that person an offer. No, Stephanie, that's what I just said. Now, you might not have heard that. Should I apply for a job that I'm not qualified for? No, what a waste of time that is. You won't get responded. You muck up the system, and companies will have to spend more money to eliminate the candidates who are unqualified. That's all technology is doing. The problem arose when we let people apply for jobs nilly-willy. In the olden days, it was hard to apply for a job. You saw them in the yellow pages, or you saw them in classified ads. You applied, you had to put a resume together, you had to mail it. So you're very restrictive on who you email. It was a lot of work. You didn't send 100 jobs, you sent 12 or 15, and one of them usually worked. So the classified ads, as bad as they were, actually they worked. you got good people, because only good people look for the jobs and only good people apply for jobs because there's a lot of work to do it. Okay, why always categories and overqualified with the non-qualified ones when hiring? So let me answer, let me answer the overqualified question. If I go back to the hiring formula for success, it says ability in relationship to fit drives motivation, and that equals results. Motivation is a critical component of competency. So so I remember a guy, this had to be 20 or 30 years ago, PhD in chemistry. I was looking for someone to set up a new minor. It was a lab. It wasn't a big complicated thing, but it was 3 or 4 people setting up an important lab, but it was a senior staff position. Well, this person had a PhD and had been a general manager at a company. And he was perfectly competent to do it. But I asked the candidate, I said, what have you done recently that's that low a level job? He said, well, I haven't done it for 10 or 15 years, but I can do it. I know you can do it, but you're not motivated to do it. You know, within 6 months or a year, if you can get a better job, you'll take it. So I would not hire. That to me is being that is not being competent. 2 things, ability and motivation. And if you can't demonstrate motivation near term, you're overcompetent. Or if you can't demonstrate ability but motivation, you're also incompetent. So you can be overcompetent and you have to have that balance there. And to me, it's getting that balance is critical. It's a high risk to hire someone full time. It's a high risk to give someone a job where they're not motivated intrinsically to do it. So I define it as competency is a combination of motivation and ability. And without one or the other, it's a no deal. That might be hard to say. I'm attorney and changing practice, and I'm having to, do you have any suggestions regarding career transitions? Let me give generic ability. Somebody 2 weeks ago on one of these calls said he was a project leader in, I think it was Ventura, California, which is north of LA. And he wanted a local job, and he couldn't find anything. So I said, let's go on LinkedIn. And I just showed him how to go on LinkedIn and do a X-ray of LinkedIn site to find hiring managers in his area. I said, don't send a resume, put a project together that you've done in logistics and warehouse, and it had to be cross-docking and some other kind of new technology and logistics. Put a 1-page paragraph together, a 2-page summary together, and send it to people. And I just went through the exercise, identified, here's some people you could identify. And he found 15 people. And I said, send it to them. This is the work you've done. See if any of them are looking. That's all I did. So now I say, if you have no experience and you want to be a lawyer doing work you've never done, well, I can't help you on that. I'm a recruiter. I have to find people who are competent and motivated. So if you feel as a subject matter, Citrina, in your area with a level of expertise, I would just summarize that level of expertise, find people who could use that expertise, send an email summarizing the work you've done in that related area. It might be a different industry. And then I try to arrange an exploratory phone call, just a conference call. Hey, I'd just like to chat with you about some project work I've done. I see that you have needs for that. Would love to arrange a call just to see if there's some work we can do for you, help you do some work. I think that's a better approach. Can't be perfect, but I know it would be better. Of course, no positions have the hiring manager, Lisa, in the job posting. You got to figure that part out. I can go in and LinkedIn and figure that out. I know, let's assume XYZ company. It's in the engineering design department. Well, I can go to XYZ company, and you might have to buy LinkedIn Premium to do it, but that's $20 a month, and look for people who have managers or directors in that area of work. And all of a sudden you see 30 people show up. And even if it's not the right, that's why if you go to director or VP, you say, I understand your department is hiring for these areas. I would love to have a chance to chat with you to see if one of these open spots makes sense. I think you got to be a little sleuthy around here. It's not going to be direct. If it was direct, everybody would do it. This is the back door, so you got to be kind of clever to figure it out. The class I have here, the free class, the one for job seekers, and I'm going to go back to the home here, see if I can get there. This class gives tips on that. But I have another component of that class that's not going to be ready for probably a month, of how you can do some of that sleuthing to find a job in the hidden job market. But right now I can't pull that off. Okay, I usually go a half hour, so I got 2 more minutes. Any last questions? Let's see if I have It's actually, Greg, it's so easy. I can't, how do I do this? It's called X-raying LinkedIn's public site. If you look at its site, and unfortunately I don't have it here, but it's a term called X-ray a site. So you go to site:linkedin.com/in, and then you just put some words in, and you can put hiring manager, director, VP, and the name of the company and the name of the city, and all of a sudden you'll see all the LinkedIn profiles pop up. So it's not like pulling teeth. It's like brushing your teeth, not like pulling your. It's so easy. I just can't believe. And it's not much more. Number one, it's easier than applying. You still might not get anybody responding back, but it is easier. And I'll put a course together now. I just don't have it ready off the top of my head. What happens when someone believes he is qualified for a job, but one-day assessment was used against such a person? I don't know what that means, Jamal. I apologize. Do you think a video of a person's success story would be? Oh, I do. Somebody said this is a great question. So Ken, you have a question. Do you think a video? Yeah, I would actually. And in fact, this is what I told a fellow who did the thing with the logistics project. I said, why don't you put a 2-minute video together describing the project, put the write-up next to it, and send both to the hiring managers you find on LinkedIn, which is just like brushing your teeth. But you got to learn how to brush your teeth. But nonetheless, I think that's a great idea. I think a combination that would just be. It's like 2 marketing component. Okay, thank you very much. Hey, thank you very much, the Dell Recruiter. Okay, so I want you to look at what a Dell Recruiter put in. Can I cut and paste this? I don't know if I can. Hold on. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try something, Dell Recruiter. Let's keep on moving. Don't put anything in, guys. Hold on. No, I can't get it. Dell, thank you, Dell Recruiter, for doing that. Unfortunately, as I get these other thank yous in, my cut and paste keeps on going. But hey, guys, hopefully that was helpful. Look forward to seeing you. Make sure you download or sign up for the Job Seeker class if you want to be a recruiter and understand how to blow the system up to go more high tech as opposed to more high touch and get rid of high tech. Go for info at performancebasedhiring.com. But let me leave you with this critical point. The best HR tech can do is hire people, the best of the bottom half. I'll say it again. The best HR tech can do is hire the best of the bottom half. The best of the top half won't succumb to applying for jobs and the inappropriateness of the whole process. So if you want to hire the best of the top half, you got to go high touch. You do those things, you will hire better people every time. If you ace the interview and find jobs in the hidden market, I guarantee you'll get more career opportunities rather than lateral transfers that wind up being dead ends. Good luck, everybody. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday at the Almost Daily Recruiting Show. Thanks, everybody.